Welcome everybody to my awesome Friday evening. You're listening to me, Heidi, Hollis, the Outlander. So welcome to the show, everybody. Oh my gosh. It's been gorgeous out. I'm in Chicago, and we should be dealing with some, at least a little frost coming around. But nope, mid-70s today, and it's October. Almost Halloween. That's just cuckoo. But I don't mind it. No one's complaining here that I've seen, except for people who really love fall weather. I'm like, look, the leaves are turning. Just enjoy the nice warm breeze. But anyways, I have to tell you guys who do not know where you have landed. This show is about bringing outlandish and interesting topics to the forefront, from aliens, angels, ghosts, demons, holy encounters, shadow people, to Bigfoot, to the outlandish. I always say, if it's weird, we're here, and now you've joined me in my madness. If you don't know who I am when it comes to the outlandish, personally, I'm someone who has been there, seen that, experienced it, freaked out, found some answers, wrote about it, got over it, and now I'm hoping to help others do the same darn thing and understand this wild world of ours. I welcome you to go to my main website, which is HeidiHollis.com, and you will discover things there that no man should not know. And I want to tell you guys how you can hear this program. Inception Radio Network, they have a wonderful app. Most of the listeners seems to listen to that, so it's all good. So you may not be listening to me live, which is okay. I'll forgive you. We have exploded on the scene. We could be heard on so many different platforms. I don't even know all of them. But I know iHeart's one of our newest. So welcome, everybody over there, iHeart. So there's also this very dandy little phone number that you could call. Like, my parents use it to listen to the show. They just dial a number and put it on speakerphone, which is 712-770-8888. And though I know most of you guys are not listening to the show live, which I don't know why, because we're in the chat room. You should really be enjoying it. I don't know why, but there's a lot of people over there that are trickling on into the chat room, and we have a lot of fun. But you can call into the show live at 1-888-919-2355 or Skype your comments and questions to Inception Radio Network, and MJ will filter those lovely questions this way. And if you go and join us in the chat room, just type irnchat.com and cap your comments and questions, and I'll do my best to get to them. It can be hard to do when I'm trying to listen and juggle stuff and eat a snack or two. Drink a coffee or tea, I don't know, whatever. Put my feet up. But I do my best. Now, I've heard from a lot of you guys who are saying, where's the Outlandish Corner? I'm sending you my emails. I am sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting to them now, because today, first 30 minutes of my program, I will have the Outlandish Corner. What is that? That's where you, send your comments and questions, your experiences, anything out of the ordinary that you've dealt with. Send them on over to me, and I will give some level-headed advice on whatever it may be. I am not a psychic or a guru. I'm just weird, and I've written a lot of books. Okay, sorry. But my email address is Outlander. That's D as in David, A, S as in Sam, Outlander at gmail.com. Sorry, it's the Reese's. Oh, I found my favorite new food. Okay, not food, but snack. Like Reese's Cup was my favorite. Well, it just got better because they threw Reese's Pieces in the middle of it. Ooh. Oh, man, I just couldn't imagine that could have gotten better, but it sure did. It is delicious. So don't mind me. I'm still enjoying those. So, and you know what I've done this evening, because our guest this evening is truly, kind of in the same vein of the holiday and the Outlandish Corner. So, and I will officially introduce him after the break, but he's going to join me for the Outlandish Corner. So I would like to tell Brandon Massullo, I hope I said it right, to pop on in here. Brandon, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeehaw! How do you, Massullo? Is that it?
Massullo, yeah, you're really close.
Massullo. Oh, okay.
Massullo,
So
yeah.
I'm thinking of Star Trek, Sulo, and yeah, whatever. So I am ecstatic that, it's been a while since I've invited a guest to join me for the Outlandish Corner. But so you guys know, sneak peek, okay, on his bio, he has written a new book called Ghost Studies. Oh, yeah. So Brandon, I did not ferret through these emails before selecting them. I just kind of copy pasted and just kind of went with it. So you might get a little alien or something in there. I don't know. We're going to see. So
I don't know much about aliens.
I'll take it from there. Or Bigfoot. Well, crap. We'll see what we got. We just dug into the hat here. All right. So these are fun, but not always. It could be really horrifying stuff. But okay. So anyways, this says, Dear Heidi, I have no one that I could tell this to that would understand or think that I wasn't imagining what I experienced. Oh, okay. For my entire life, I have been connected with the paranormal. Aliens, haha, there you go, Brandon. Had a near-death experience when I was little, and this year experienced something that I cannot clarify. On Mother's Day weekend of this year, I woke up around 4:30 a.m. and could not get back to sleep. After some time, I decided to order a movie while still lying in bed. When lying in bed, I faced the entrance to my bedroom. As I was watching the movie, I saw movement come in to focus in the doorway. I looked up and saw black, sharp features leaning on the doorframe of my bedroom. Ooh, that gives me chills. The shapes were sharp and black, like flat black, almost like flat cardboard paper. The shape was that of a head and a shoulder leaning in, as if it was peeking around the corner. Ooh, Brandon, we got a juicy one here. I saw it, had enough time to realize I was looking at something, and then looked to my dog, who was lying on the bed, to see if he would have a reaction or was paying attention. He was licking his paws, and the presence didn't disturb him or call his attention. I looked back at the object, and in my head said, it's a shadow person. As soon as I thought went through my head, the black figure immediately began to dissipate. It didn't disappear, but turned green and looked as if the shape was fading green energy. I could clearly still see the outline of the shapes as the head and shoulder sections turned from 2D black, cut out to green energy, and dissolved completely. Wow. I wasn't terrified, but more in shock. To me, I feel that it was a shadow person. I would have been completely terrified, feel horror, etc. I truly feel that if it was more alien related. Do you have any idea what I saw or any thoughts in regards? Any help you could give me would be greatly appreciated. Every day I replay this. I can't sleep in my room without keeping the lights on. I don't blame you. Even thought that sometimes I don't edit. That's okay. Even thought that it even took place while it was light outside. I have 2 little boys, and I'm a single mom, and want to make sure that they are not in any danger, or if I need to call on further help. Thank you so much, Tracy. Boom, Brandon. I'm going to throw it right at you because it's fun.
Wow, so that was really, really descriptive. Like, she got the color changes. She got everything. And I guess I always wonder why it seems often that these figures and apparitions appear in doorways, in door frames. Doesn't it always seem that way?
It does. A collection of positive, negative ions? What are we talking about? Like a lightning rod of sorts for the ether world?
I don't know. It seems like they're almost hanging out in the doorway, just looking at someone. It's a weird phenomenon. But I guess my question, I almost want to ask her questions. Like, how often does this happen? How long was the apparition there? What makes that day different than every other day? Like, what was going on that thing appeared that day? I know you're more of an expert on shadow people than I'll ever be.
Yeah, but there aren't any sharp-edged shadow people I've heard of.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's the kicker for me. So those are good questions, though. It's like to ask, I wish I had that opportunity, but
Yeah.
A lot of people are shy, and they'll send an email versus calling in. So it's all good. And they get a lot more, I think, details even, because they take time to figure this stuff out, how they want to express it. So
yeah, that was very detailed.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to have an experience like that, and sort of, I mean, it's out of this world in a way. So if you sort of document, get how often it comes, what your mood was, what was different about that day, and sort of, if you can get a consistency, maybe get an idea of how often this thing is showing up, I think you have a better idea of what it is.
Yeah. It sounded like a one-time deal that this popped up, and she keeps replaying it in her head. So, okay, all right, Tag, I'm gonna say what I think this might have been. I don't think it was a shadow person. Shadow people have a connection with alien beings, but this sounded like some form of, it's odd to say, but it sounded kind of mechanical. It sounded proby-like, but she described it as having a head with shoulders, but with sharp edges. That is so out of this world. I haven't heard of that before. And shadow people would give you a sense of absolute dread. Aliens, more nosy, more inquisitive, more, taking a peek. But shadow people have been known to do that as well. And when she described this dissipating green energy, that sounds like a technology once again. I'm going to share a quick story, Tracy. This is crazy, but I had a friend. Okay, this was a roommate at a time, and we had some strange things going on in the apartment. That's just a given. And so this friend was Jewish, and put what do you call it, mezuzah or something on the door to keep negative things out, and because so many things were just happening, it was just so bizarre. So they put this little scrolled thing of the 10 Commandments or something on the door, or some kind of blessing. I don't know, something along those lines. And next day, I'm like, she's in the living room watching TV. I'm washing dishes or something, and like she shrieked or something. I can't remember. And she's like, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And I'm thinking, because we had a rodent run in this apartment at one point. Oh. And she's like, and I heard something hit the bag, and she's shrieking like, "Oh my God, look!" And I'm like turning, and I saw the bag kind of tumbled over a little bit. I'm like, "Oh my God, where'd it go?" And she's like freaked out, paralyzed, going, "No, it went down the hallway," and she couldn't get her description out, and I'm chasing to go see what the heck it was. I'm from the country. I'm not afraid of no little field mice. So I'm like looking to see where this thing went. When she finally calmed down, she described to me a 2D flat, very dark brown, a square that kind of came through the door somehow, hit the garbage bag, and flattened itself and went flat down the hallway. So a technology of some sort, a probe of some sort, I don't know. But when I hear this story from Tracy here, it's all I could think of being the closest to it, like a 2D thing. Like, can it slap a triangular head on it and it make it look like it was head and shoulders? I don't know. But this is a doozy, Tracy. If I come across something similar, I'll definitely get back to you and let you know. That was a cool one. Wow. Yeah, Tracy, thanks so much for writing that one. That was wild. Okay, so I got a big one here. Okay, Brandon. Oh boy, Here we go. This one says, "Hi, Heidi. I was absolutely ecstatic to hear you on Coast to Coast AM tonight." Okay, that was a little over a week ago. "I love hearing about phenomena which I myself have experienced, or at least I think I have. Sleep paralysis. Since I was a young girl for about 4 or 5 years, I had recurring nightmares where a very large, dark energy, male energy, would stand at the end of my bed, grab me by the ankles, and try to pull me off the bed. Obviously, I was terrified, but the problem was that I was also paralyzed. Eventually, I was struggled to the point where I felt I must have passed out. When I woke up, it was usually daytime, and the dark man, quote, was gone. Prior to the dark man appearing, I'd first hear footsteps down the hallway outside my bedroom, always seemingly to stop at my door. By the time I was around 15 or 16, the, quote, dark man no longer came to my room, but I continued to experience sleep paralysis. In fact, I still do, and I'm 53 years old. From about that same age, I often tell my friends that I came from the stars and that I didn't belong here. I always felt different from everyone else, even from the earliest memories. There are no baby pictures of me, not until I was 5. Ooh. And whenever I asked my mom to describe me as a child, she would only ever say, "You were just different." Mom's saying you were an ugly baby. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Then they go, reptilians. Not too long ago, August 2013, I was attending a past life regression conference in Vancouver, BC, Canada. The workshop was led by Brian Weiss, probably one of the world's most recognized experts on the subject. I had only become interested in the subject 3 months earlier. A good friend of mine and yours, Robin, introduced me to some of Brian's books, which really, really intrigued me. I found out that as luck would have it, he was coming to Vancouver, a short drive from my current home, just a few months away from first exposure to his works. I went, and along with about 1,000 others, got to experience 4 regressions, all led by Dr. Weiss. Wow, can you imagine all that going on at once? Woo! That would have been wild.
That sounds like, I never did do a regression. That sounds like a good time.
Oh, yeah, I think it would be cool. So it says, I sat in the front row and was completely transfixed by Dr. Weiss and by the process of regression. Everything was going great. I mean, that I was really having amazing regressions, including a rebirth experience, which I'll never forget. I bet. However, things suddenly went sideways on the last regression. As Dr. Weiss spoke to the audience and set up the final regression, he told us to ask the person next to us for a personal object of theirs. The lady next to me was an elderly woman from St. Louis. She and I had been chatting for most of the conference, so I felt comfortable asking for something personal. She thought about it for a few minutes, then unhooked a chain from her neck. The necklace was long silver chain with medium-sized links, with a huge cross with Jesus on it, the typical crucifixion posture. I placed it in the palm of my left hand, closed my hand, then my eyes, waiting for Dr. Weiss's regression instructions. Within a few moments of him speaking to the crowd, guiding us into a trance, a meditative state, to my utter horror, I, quote, saw that my left hand had morphed into a reptilian-like hand. Oh, this is a good one, Brandon. It was very large. The color was a brilliant iridescent green with blue and yellow tones as well. The hand had huge talon-like claws, 2 to 3 inches long. My arm was scaled up to my elbow, and my entire leg and foot, which my hand was resting upon, was of the same scaly texture, also brilliant green-blue. The palm of my hand, where the necklace crucifix was resting, was sitting in a pool of dark red blood. I was so rattled after this experience, I didn't really know how to express what had happened. After the regression, I immediately got up from my seat to look for the restroom. After using the washroom, I walked back to my seat, speaking to no one. As I sat down, I crossed my legs out of habit and felt a stinging sensation across my lower left leg. I looked at my leg and saw a very fresh gash, 4 to 6 inches long, a 1/4 inch wide. On a steep angle from one side of the leg to the other, it really hurt, and I was at a complete loss as to how it got there. It took me a long, long time to feel okay after this event and plunged me into a kind of mini depression, something extremely rare for me. After speaking with Robin and a few others, I trusted it became apparent that I hadn't protected myself first prior to being regressed. I had not even considered that I would need protection for myself in these situations. From what? I used to ask, now I know. This past September, October, I consulted a man named Michael. He performed several clearings on myself and home. He identified cords which would need to be cut, as well as 2 non-earthbound entities and 1 earthbound entity. Michael never tells the client when the clearing is going to happen. He sends a follow-up email once he has completed the remote clearing. One afternoon, a few days after I signed up for my clearing, I expected a dark cloud I experienced a dark cloud of energy, approximately half the size of my body, leaving my body and floating up into the ceiling above my head. Many other bizarre things happened that day, but the dark cloud leaving my body was by far the most interesting. After the clearing, I felt a lot better, but not completely free of a dark presence, which had become somewhat of a dark shadow energy to me ever since the past life regression conference. A week later, I went to a weekend clearing retreat, which was very, very powerful. And I can honestly say that the dark energy that had dogged my world for more than a year was completely gone. However, lately I'm experiencing energy beings of questionable motives. So I guess I need to develop some more protection strategies. My spiritual beliefs are mixed. I believe in an afterlife, past lives, aliens as possibly a representation of our alter egos, evil as possibly one facet of love, a universal field of possibilities, co-creation, and love is God. That's my story. I'd love to know what you think. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Hugs, MG. Wow.
Wow.
Boom.
We went from sleep paralysis to past life regression to dark cloud of energy. Wow, that was a lot going on there.
Truly. Go for it, Brandon.
Well, I actually suffer. I haven't had it in a while, but I used to suffer from sleep paralysis as well. I used to see a dark, kind of like she mentioned, like a dark shadow figure coming at me, and I couldn't move, and I would try to scream, and I couldn't talk. Sleep paralysis is terrifying. I don't know what happened. I just sort of stopped having them. I don't know if it was stress related or what, but I definitely feel the pain when it comes to that.
Demons. You're speaking to the shadow people guru, right?
Yeah, well, psychological demons probably, that's for sure. What happens during a regression? Is it like a hypnosis type situation, or is it like meditation? Because she kept saying she went regressions, and I kept thinking, what's going on? Is he like...
Yeah, it's like they get them to a relaxed state so they can more easily recall from whence they came or what took place during an event, things like that. So,
it almost seems like, Carl Jung. Have you ever heard of Carl Jung?
Yes.
Yeah. He did a lot on collective unconscious and archetypes and things like that. It almost seems like she sort of tapped into an archetype here with the reptilian and with that thing. It seemed like that somehow surfaced during this regression. That's where I would explore that.
Yeah.
Obviously, she believes that there was something mystical about her childhood, which no one is telling her. But I would say that during these regressions and meditative states, she might have tapped into something like collectively unconscious and archetype-wise that sort of came up, that reptilian or that snake, because that's one of Jung's biggest archetypes, is the snake. Yeah. Well,
I have to give it to you, Brandon, for trying to tackle it. That's a big, juicy, multifaceted one here. Usually I get it's a shadow people, hat man type of stuff. And I've been getting a lot more of a mixture as of late, and it's kind of cool. So
it's interesting. She brought up past life regression here. I live in Ohio, and there was a place down the street that was doing that a couple weeks ago, and I was like, man, I really want to go to this past life regression just to see what it's like. And I ended up not going. But now, if I went, I would have had so much more to add to this conversation.
Oh, it's all good. So, all right, I'm gonna tackle it. So this reptilian thing. That's actually a pretty common thing that people either witness or experience for themselves, seeing a revelation of reptiles, slee stacks, whatever you want to call them. It's such a strange thing, but I've met many people. I've received many emails from people who are like, I was sitting there talking to my friend Susie, and I look, and Susie's like standing there, but this thing is wearing her clothes. I hear her voice, but it's all reptile, and it's just like the strangest thing. Or seeing somebody's feet change into big claws, and it's like, well, I don't think that these people are always so readily aware, but then other times I think they are, because when they start to kind of morph in and out, and if you got that drop jaw look, they kind of go, and they might turn around real quick, and we've seen newscasters even do that. There's a whole slew of, if you go onto YouTube and say, reptile news reporter or something, there's a bunch of them where they start to kind of change on camera, and some of them seem to realize, and they grab their face. It's so weird. What is going on with that? I'm not always certain, but when you talk about this dark cloud having left you, and you feel like it's fully gone, I have heard of people claiming to kind of be possessed by alien beings. Go figure. But it's something that's truly going on, and I would suggest listening to a show that I did with Kathleen Marden, Marden. She's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill. And if you go to Inception Radio Network, tune into that one, because she kind of discusses that to some extent. We got into the juicy bits of it, and it's the solo interview that she and I did. There was one that she did with Stanton Friedman. It's not that one; it's the other one. So, it's something that is happening to people, and what triggers it, what opens it. Yeah, it could have been because you went into that meditative state. Your guard was down. Something said, "Oh, how about that? Let me go take a look," and slide on in there. And how can I say? People feel they're looking through the eyes of an alien being, and they'll see their alien body, and though it's not their own, too. And it's like, well, what is that about? Tapping into something for sure. Sounds like what you did. As far as the sleep paralysis thing, it sounds like Brandon is in the belief of the sleep paralysis being a psychological thing. I'm on the demon side. So these things, I think that these things like to suck the energy, the fear out of people. People all describe the same thing, and people that have not met each other. And I'm the person that's collected these all for 20 more years about Hat Man, shadow people. And so many times people are like, I thought I was the only one, and they're describing the exact same thing. And it's like, can we all just suddenly be having this great sense of imagination to think, oh, it's that, that we're all connected. We got the psychic link going on, and we're all just happen to be able to form that. I'm of the opinion that no, there's something sinister going on, because people will be wide awake and see these same things as well, such as my first several experiences. No fun watching it chase myself and one of my friends. Really crazy, broad daylight. I wasn't sleeping. And it's the same thing creeping into people's bedrooms at night. So, yeah, not cool. But, the past life regression thing, absolutely cool. That's something I would like to do. I have not been an easy person to hypnotize. I would love to try it again and see what happens, but I never tried for a past life. I remember enough without it, but I still would like to. Well, Brandon, this was this was really juicy. I swear, yeah. It's like I'm really wow. I was hoping that we get a nice mix, but that was pretty good. They really put a lot of time and effort into those emails. I mean, that was both of those were really detailed, and kudos to them for sitting down and writing all that down. It's really. Oh, I have a few hundred more to get through, but I'm run out of time. I really do. I have probably thousands. I don't know. It's just like every time I think I've got. No, I have not. But one thing I have to tell this Tracy, and was the initials MG, for writing in. Part of educating people and part of strength building is sharing your story. Against all odds, if somebody cracks a smile or laughs, even I laugh at myself and some of the stuff I've experienced. But that's just life, and that's just how things are. But let people laugh, let them smile and smirk. But guess what? When and if they have something weird going on in their life, you'll be the first person they will call. So you're going to be the beacon of light, whether you like it or not. And this is part of growing up in this paranormally charged world. So
it's good. You got to get that out. You got to vent it. You can't keep that in. That's what they teach in psychology. You can't keep those emotions and thoughts and issues inside.
Indeed. So you guys, we're going to officially introduce the guest that's been helping me out here. And we're going to go to our first break. You're listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander. Remembering, always if it's weird, we're here. We're giving you advice and insight on outlandish topics. Phone lines are always open, 1-888-919-2355. And now I get to officially introduce the mysterious voice you heard in the first section. Brandon Massullo, I said it wrong, is a clinical therapist and parapsychologist residing in Northeast Ohio. While studying at the University of Edinburgh's Kostler Parapsychology Unit, he conducted research which centered on how the neurobiological correlates with ghostly encounters. Woo! Everybody give a round of applause to Brandon Massullo.
Hey.
Massullo. Woohoo!
Massullo, yeah, you got it. Close enough.
You're the author of the brand new book, Ghostly Studies or Ghost Studies? What is it? Ghostly Studies.
The Ghost Studies.
The Ghost Studies. Okay, yeah. And so, do people? Okay, you're a clinical therapist. I just find that fascinating. I'm an occupational therapist. I specialize in psychology, and I think it's so fascinating that you combined the two that you did. So, do you have a lot of paranormally charged people coming looking for you?
I haven't.
What?
I know. Well, the book just came out, so you know, maybe when word gets around. But I majority of my clinical work has been I did residential treatment in a substance abuse facility for a while, and then I did outpatient counseling, and then I worked in an emergency room doing psychological evaluations for about 6 or 7 years for a local hospital here. So I would get the consults in the ER or medical floors if people were having problems with depression, anxiety, substance abuse, even psychosis, all that. So I was doing 3 to 4 behavioral health consults a day. So I've done probably 5,000 in my lifetime. And usually I will get someone, talking about ghosts and things like that. But a lot of the encounters that I got from my book weren't necessarily from patients. It was more from outside of that, because I lived in Scotland for a year. And if you've ever been to Scotland, everyone has a ghost story in Scotland. So
did you have a translator? They've got a strong accent.
They do have a strong. It took about 4 weeks. Well, I struggled that first month. I really did. Yeah. But after that, I started picking it up pretty quickly. And you kind of get used to it. If you see it, every day, all day,
I hear you.
Don't catch on, you're gonna fall to the wayside.
Yeah, well, I lived in Australia for a bit, and I just giggled all day. I was like, "Oh, they're like British cowboys." It was just fun. So wow. So, I think that I don't know. I find that a lot more people are opening up to the possibilities of the paranormal, and I feel like there's a big need for people like yourself who have a good understanding in what you do. I'm shocked that there haven't been more that are like Googling you up. I hope that it does change soon, because, gosh, you're needed.
Actually, in parapsychology, there's actually, I don't know if I consider it a branch of it or not, but it's called clinical parapsychology. And that's really a lot of practitioners who are getting into sort of specializing in counseling or helping people through paranormal events that somewhat are distressing for people. So, if you start getting, premonitions or clairvoyance, or you start having some ESP or psi abilities, it's a lot for people to wrap their heads around. They start thinking like they're going crazy. So clinical parapsychology really deals with counseling and help for people who are going through paranormal phenomena that's causing some distress. There's textbooks on it. There's a lot of research and journal papers on it. So that's actually getting, I don't want to say more popular in the last 5-10 years. So there are some practitioners who sort of specialize in that.
That's amazing. You know what was wild to me? I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin originally, though I'm here in Chicago, and I got contacted by a crisis center for the state or the city of Wisconsin to put me down as a crisis person to contact in case of alien abductions, ghostly phenomena. I was like, wow, yeah, sure, put my name down. It was It was wild. It was really wild. Yeah, but I thought, wow, what an open mind. And that was 20 years ago, I'm like,
oh yeah.
So I was really moved that, there are some areas that are open to that and realize they'll come across that. But a serious question to ask you, because I work around a lot of mentally ill or mood disordered folks. And sometimes I've come across people that, wow, they're just really on top of it for paranormal stuff going on. I'm like, God, that fits right in the hole. What have you come across some of your patients that are like, maybe they're just a little bit too in touch, that maybe they're not as far gone, or maybe they saw too much and they couldn't handle it? I mean, have you come across that?
I think sometimes, usually a lot of the patients I saw in the ER were pretty crisis level. So they were pretty psychotic and overwhelmed with their symptoms. Usually when I would talk to teenagers, because part of the ER was assessing teenagers and young adults too, you would really sometimes get to where they were having a lot of these phenomenon that, really couldn't be explained, rationally. So occasionally you start to think, well, maybe they are picking something up, or maybe there is something else going on. Because one of the standard questions you always ask in an emergency room assessment is, do you hear or see anything that other people don't hear or see? So that could be a loaded question for somebody who, has, issues or has ghosts in their house or feels like their house is haunted. Because, you got a guy in a lab coat asking you psych questions, and you're going to start, am I going to tell him I have a ghost in my house? So,
I find it hilarious because I've had a concussion, okay, and I've been asked that question one too many times, and I'm like, oh, hold on, and I'm like, I just so happen to have one of my books on me at the time, and I'm like, I said, you can't ask me that. And I flipped it at him. I'm like, look, I mean, this is what I do, and it's like, I hope I don't have any crazy psych diagnoses floating around out there. But, I have to ask you, Brandon, is this your real name, Brandon Massullo?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so welcome to the fold, and God help you if your patients Google you, because I have been met with that.
Oh. Yeah, well, I'm not as famous as you, so hopefully.
It'll happen, because it's just a thing. It's that people do. You're walking into a new job, whatever, they Google you. And I'm thinking, I'm in the clear. They wouldn't Google me. Why would they Google? And they're like, so tell us about the demons you write about.
Oh, my God.
I just start laughing, and they're just like, what? I have questions. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So, it's never been to my detriment, that's for sure. But it leads to interesting conversations, that's for sure.
And usually, I think you're right. Most people, before they see someone, they usually Google them in some manner of fact. So maybe that makes them feel more comfortable if they have these paranormal phenomena, knowing that I study parapsychology, and I'm more open to it maybe than the typical person, counselor or psychologist or whatever.
Truly. My goodness. So we got to start funneling people your way. I apologize in saying your title of your book wrong. I mean, this is your first book, The Ghost Studies. And, there's been so many books written on ghosts, but yours is very different. Do tell, because you're going from an angle I don't think I've seen before.
Yeah, I like to think it's really different. I've been a fan of the paranormal for 20 years, and one of the things that there's a lot of great books out there. There's no doubt about it. But one of the things that in this book is I actually, I give a little bit more. It's ghost stories, but then there's a little bit of explanation for maybe why this was occurring. So what I like to say is it's a mixture of ghost stories and science and explanations. So what I do in the book is I provide two new perspectives on sort of what may cause ghostly encounters. So that's really what makes the book a little bit more different than what's normally out there. So I have a lot of chapters on sort of scientific theories, a lot of the latest research on energy and electricity when it comes to hauntings, and sort of a little bit about how emotions, bioenergetics, and consciousness sort of and play a role in ghostly encounters as well. So it's a mixture of a lot of things in this book. And usually by the end of it, I've got a lot of people telling me that, it really helped me look at ghostly phenomenon or ghostly encounters in a different way. So, and that's the biggest compliment I can take from people who've read this book. And, you don't have to be a paranormal expert to read this. My wife is not a paranormal expert, and she said there was a lot she got out of it. I've had some family members, I've had some friends, and just some people who, I've met at these conventions say, I don't follow ghosts too much, but I did grasp everything you were saying. It was really an interesting read.
That's good. That it's always a bonus when people don't feel like you spoke over their head. That they don't need to have a degree in what you do in order to understand it. So that's a huge compliment. So you say what causes ghostly experiences now. A lot of times, and I find that a lot of ghost hunters and whatnot, they're just like, well, if something really bad happened in this area, there's a lot of concentrated negative energy, and
I
it's
like your ghost hunter voice. It's really good.
Yeah. I gotta shave my head when I talk about it, but so I mean, what causes it? I mean, I had a ghost hunter on one time. This is a fascinating point that he made, and he's like, Heidi, you can't get rid of ghosts. I'm like, what do you mean you can't? He's like, look at how many billions of people have died. They're everywhere. What, are you going to shove them to a corner? I'm like, well, yeah, as long as I'm out of my space, I don't care if I plow them down on the road. But, I mean, so what causes ghostly experiences? Why aren't there 1,000 of them in our homes,
I think everyone defines ghosts and spirits and everything a little bit differently. If you see a visual apparition, does it automatically mean it's a ghost? There could be other explanations for that. And it, from all the mainstream stuff of hallucinations to sleep paralysis, like we talked about earlier, to, all those types of things, but also on the believer side or the spiritualist side, it could be, ESP working, it could be thought transference, it could be a number of things, gathering stuff from the environment. So it doesn't necessarily have to be survival after death. And I think, one of the things I talk about in this book is like, let's go into this and throw all of our stereotypes out of what a ghost is. And obviously the definition of a phone has changed since the 1800s.
Oh,
right?
Yes. It's a magic wand now.
Exactly. So with definitions, I think sometimes they have to adapt a little bit. And the definition of a ghost is pretty much, I'm guessing, somewhat stayed the same since the beginning of time in a way. So I think it's maybe time to look at things a little bit differently as far as what we're looking at when we say ghostly encounters. And I think that's something the book really looks at. It's a different perspective. It's a really different perspective on ghosts. It has a little bit to do with some of this perspective in parapsychology, but I add a little twist to things as well. So when I talk to paranormal investigators, I when I sit down and talk to them, I like, hey, let's get on the same wavelength. What's your definition of a ghost? And how do you feel about this? And how do you feel about imprint theory and place theory?
Yes, the residual hauntings.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
All that stuff. And when you sit down and talk to somebody, you open that dialogue and you find that, maybe what they term a ghost isn't really an external spirit trying to communicate, but it could be something in the environment, like a telepathic distress signal in a way that they're tapping into it.
Yeah, sometimes, because I've seen a lot of weird stuff, okay? I'm one of those people. Yeah. And I just, I knew when one was a ghost, when it's like looking at you while you're taking a shower. I'm like, hey, that thing knows I'm here. And then there's a person rushing past you. I had one two of them run right through me. Like, they were in a rush, they were going, and I was in the way, and they didn't care. And I'm like, they weren't aware. It was just like a repeat loop of a movie I was watching or something. And and yeah, an imprint, a residual juicy bit lingering in the air. But what caused things to to, collide and just so happen to hit my eyeballs just right at the right angle to see them just as they were. Yeah. It's mind-blowing because it's not like I could repeat it. It's kind of like a deja vu. It just happened, and there they go. So.
And those one-time spontaneous cases are the best way to get information about paranormal phenomenon because they occur one time. There's only one witness. The witness probably knows all the variables that were going on, where they were, what time of day it was, how they were feeling emotion-wise. So they really give a great snapshot. So if you try to study a haunted location, you take away the one witness, and now you have hundreds of witnesses with different stories, different locations, different times of day. So it becomes a little bit more complicated to study that type of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. So you have gone and interviewed ghost hunters. Have you, been the sacrificial lamb at any haunted location?
When you say sacrificial lamb,
Did you lock yourself in any place? Did you try to feel the vibes of it all?
I've been to a lot of haunted locations in my time. I never gone somewhere, locked myself in overnight or anything like that. But I've been to plenty of haunted locations. When I lived in Edinburgh, I did research at I don't know if you ever heard of Mary King's Close.
No.
It's a haunted location in Edinburgh. They say it's one of the most haunted places. All the TV shows have been there: Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, Most Haunted. I could name all of them. But it's like an underground city. So in Scotland during the 1600s, some businesses and apartments were actually underground, to save space because the city was so overwhelmed. So there was all kinds of stuff that happened down there. But legend has it that when the plague came around, they actually walled people up down in this underground city, Mary King's Close, and they died down there. And there was murders and all that other stuff going on down there too. But one of the things is before I did the research, I had to take baseline readings of EMF every morning. So I did this for 7 days. So I'd go down in the Close by myself, which was an eerie place. So I was hanging out down there for maybe an hour or so by myself. And, you get some peculiar things happening, but I never saw like a full-blown apparition or anything like that. And I've never seen anything in any of the haunted locations I've been to.
Darn.
Yeah, I know.
Jeez. It's like, man, you've been so dedicated for 20 years. And I've met many people like yourself who are, just so dedicated, and that one thing just has not come their way, and it's like what a shame. Well, I'm not going to pray that you see it though, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And
yeah.
I had a friend, and I'm not kidding you. He was really into UFOs, had a UFO site and everything, and he had never seen a UFO. I'm like, oh, you want to go see one? He's like, huh? I'm like, yeah, let's go. And yeah, I took him to go see a UFO. It was probably one of the more fascinating ones I'd seen. There's a really active area in Wisconsin for them. And he, let's just say he had a mini breakdown without going into too much details, but he disappeared for a bit. I had no idea until the cops called me. And yeah, it was really sad. And I'm like, I was really surprised for someone who was so dedicated, how little they thought of what it would really mean to them to have experienced something like that. And I mean, it really can shake up your world, no matter how well you think you're prepared. That was a lesson for me too, because I'm like, I'm going to be careful in who I invite from now on.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. If it comes in your face like that, everyone's going to respond a little bit differently to it.
Yeah, I had no idea it would be such a cool one, but these things happen. I mean, so your interest got piqued with, was there like a really moving something that someone in your family, a good friend, tell you something that you just became a believer of this stuff?
No, I don't have a cool story, Heidi. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I know. I just when I was in high school, I picked up a book about parapsychology, and I started reading it, and it was really fascinating and interest to me. And this is ESP. This is remote viewing, telepathy, and obviously ghosts, reincarnation, that type of thing. And I thought, this is really cool that people are working and trying to figure out answers to this. And I was like, man, I'd really like to do this. And then I went to college and I started studying psychology. And, about halfway through, I remember I pulled one of the professors aside and I said, I'm really looking at getting into parapsychology. And he basically told me that's a bad idea.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
He's like, you'll never make money in it. There's nowhere in America because there's no universities in America actually have courses on parapsychology. So, I kind of took his advice, and then I went the conventional route, and I got a degree in psychology, and then master's degree in clinical counseling, and I was doing that for a while. And I thought to myself, let me see about this parapsychology. So that's when I applied and got accepted over to University of Edinburgh in Scotland, and I studied psychological research methods, and I had a specialization in parapsychology. So my dissertation was on a thing called environmental sensitivity and paranormal experiences, and I really that's really where I started learning the most about parapsychology. And I really have always focused on ghosts and apparitions. I never really got too much into the other stuff that a lot of parapsychologists do. And so my interest at picking up that book really just carried me throughout. And, it's kind of one of those things where I think a lot of people in the field have had an experience, and that sort of pushes them to seek more answers. Whereas I'm on the opposite end of that. I've never had an experience, but the books and going out, I'm really looking for more. I won't say I'm looking for experience, but maybe to get a little bit a better idea of what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many opportunities, but you've been to a lot of different places, so that it always surprises me how these things choose who they'll reveal themselves to and why. It's like you could be in I've had so many encounters with like UFOs and oddities, paranormal things, and even in the case of seeing a UFO, there's 50 people one time, and we all described, well, like half of us said it was blue, the other half said purple. It was like, what do you mean? It's like, it was a distinctive dark blue. I'm like, no, it was purple. And it's so strange. It's like, I think it has something to do with some of the science that you're looking into, the way that our eyes are the way the light hits our eyes, our retina, and interprets, and then there's been times where people in a crowd could see a UFO in the sky, and others thought they saw a dancing sun. That's what was that? And one of the sightings of Mary. I don't know if it was Medjugorje or something. I think it was, but it's like, what is going on here? So,
no two people experience the world the same, and that's what I found out over the last 10 years or so studying psychology and parapsychology. Everyone's perception of the world is different. So even colors, you see colors different than I do.
Everything's purple for me.
You taste things differently than I do.
Yeah.
Your sense of smell is different than mine. I know when I go with my wife to pick out colors for the house, I see, like 6 colors, white, red, blue, whatever. And she sees, off-white, eggshell white. And
of course.
I don't know what's going on. So, everyone sees things differently. And I think there's a subset of the population that's actually extremely, extremely sensitive to the environment around us. Everything that's going on, from magnetic fields to weather changes to smells to, these people tend to have a lot of migraines and fibromyalgia and environmental illnesses that go along with that. And what they found is these people who are really hypersensitive to everything around them, they have way, 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 way more paranormal experiences than the general population. So one of the questions that I looked at in a lot of my research was, why is that? Why is this subset of the population having these wonderful experiences? What is it about them? And that's really what got me going in the whole, writing the book and ghosts.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Well, we're missing chromosomes. I think that's the problem. So, I have so many questions that have been coming up here in the chat room, so I will definitely pose some of those to you here soon. We're going to get to our next break. You guys, you are listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander. I have the author of The Ghost Studies, Brandon, who is discussing some interesting aspects to his book that I don't think I've seen culminated into one book. So his first book, and what a fabulous way to approach ghostly things. And you're kind of combining the psych aspects, the emotional aspects, the science aspect, the neurobiological ones. I mean, are there any like cool stories that you depict in the book and then apply this new approach to?
Yeah, I have. I have a whole chapter of just case studies in the book. And I think for me personally, and this is going through school and even as an adult, I learn best with case examples, and I learn best with reading a case study and then sort of explaining what's going on after it. One of the things in the book I saw someone in the chat room was talking about Civil War stuff and Gettysburg.
Right.
I have a case example about some Civil War soldiers in the book as well, and I kind of break it down about really what I'm thinking about there. Did you want to hear a case example? Or
I would sure love it. Yeah, Russ had actually asked if you'd gone out to Civil War area. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pick one from Gettysburg, because that's the one I talk about sometimes on the in the book here. But so this is in 1863. Deborah had a 19-year-old son who was fighting in the Battle of Gettysburg. All right, and this is just a sort of an account from Deborah. I woke up one morning around 2 a.m. feeling like I'd been punched in the head. I was covered in sweat, had a terrible headache, and felt blood gushing down my face. I couldn't breathe, and I was gasping for air as if choking. I felt as if my lungs were filling with water or sludge, so I went to the bathroom to try and cough up the substance. I was overwhelmed with feelings of fear, sadness, and anger. So feeling weak, I sat down on the bathroom floor while crying. At that moment, I saw an image of my son in full Civil War uniform and covered in blood. I then heard my son's voice say, "Tell Mom I love her. Please tell her I love her." The image and my physical symptoms vanished within seconds. Picking myself off the floor, I looked into the mirror and saw no blood or bump that would indicate I hurt my head. A week later, Deborah learned of her son's death, which occurred at the same time as her strange symptoms that evening. Wow. According to reports, he died from a gunshot to the chest and severe head trauma. So that might explain why she had a headache, felt blood gushing down her head, and had the feelings of blood, her lungs filling with water. My goodness.
Yeah, that's right.
What a story. And moms have that sixth sense anyways. But that's a lot of detail. That's wow. That's amazing.
And that's like a blueprint or a typical crisis apparition or deathbed vision. And I'm sure you and a lot of your listeners have read stories very similar to this. So you have these phenomenon happening at the same time when someone's in distress or either just died or is dying or is in some sort of crisis, and they somehow communicate their symptoms to their it's usually family members, someone they're linked with emotionally, miles apart or states away or something like that. So in this case, maybe Deborah was in Indiana and the son was in Gettysburg, PA. So he's transferring all this stuff over to his mom, and she's experiencing it at pretty much at the same time. And that is a little bit about what I talk about in my theories. One of the theories that I have that is probably the most interesting in the book is something I call spontaneous apparitional trace theory. Mm. And what that does is it sort of says that in every haunted location, there's an individual who sent this sort of telepathic distress call to someone who they were emotionally linked with that's sort of stuck at that location. So it's a little bit of the imprint theory, which I'll talk about in a second. But from my viewpoint, it's this telepathic distress call that sensitives are picking up on and ghost hunters are encountering with their equipment. And I think that this idea or this hypothesis can account for a great deal of recurrent apparitions, residual hauntings. And what's great about my theory is a haunting doesn't have to coincide with the location of the tragic event. So in this case, the haunting doesn't have to happen at Gettysburg. It could also happen if people were investigating Deborah's house, the mom's house in Indiana. So it goes a step further, and it says, because a lot of ghost hunters and paranormal investigators will go into a house and they'll say, well, it's highly unlikely it's a haunting or paranormal because no tragedy occurred here, no death occurred here, nothing traumatic occurred here. Or they'll go into a house that's 2 or 3 years old and say, well, this house is too new to have a haunting to it. But my theory sort of throws that out the way and says you don't need those types of things to have a haunting at a location or haunt type phenomenon at a location.
Wow, that's wild. And speaking on Civil War bits, I have a family member who outright recalls it with great detail, and it was like a real dream to them of seeing their reflection, and they were a young Civil War soldier, and they know that they died during that war, and it's like, huh? It's interesting to me how people get these hints. But I got one for you. Okay, I have seen residual things, but this one has a weird note. I just don't even know how to apply it. But I went to a UFO conference of all places. Okay, my friend's in the car. I just pull up to the hotel where the conference is being held and where I'm staying. I go to put the car in park, and I'm talking to her, and I'm looking ahead of the car, and through the trees came this blonde lady in a baby blue, like jogging outfit with white stripes going down the side, blonde ponytail, blue eyes, and just like jogging, and she's coming through the trees, comes bolting through my car. I threw everything up in the air, screamed, jumped out of the car. My friend's like, what? And I'm like, what? What? She came through the car, and I on the other side of this little patch of woods is a road. So later on, I go to my friends who happen to live in the area and also attended the conference. And I'm, of course, disturbed by what I've experienced the day earlier. And I'm like, hey, guys, did a blonde girl get hit on the road here and die or something? And they froze, and they looked at me. And they're like, why, Heidi? And I'm like, well, I saw this blonde lady in his jogging suit. And they said something like, they finished my sentence and said, was it a blue with white stripes? I'm like, what? I'm like, yes. And they're like, no, Heidi, a girl did not die there. And I'm like, I'm confused. What do you mean? And they said they did not know. But a woman in St. Louis saw the same thing. And one of them had seen the same thing, but on the opposites, like many miles away. And they're like, we don't know why all of us. I'm like, hold it. There's 3 of us sitting here who have seen this woman at different spots. Yeah. And they're like, it's almost like a trigger. And they were like, conspiracy theorying, like we feel like a switch has been flipped in our heads. We don't know. I'm like, I am freaked out. I mean, how do you attribute that? That was weird.
Yeah, it's definitely weird and unusual, and that's what makes this field so amazing. But maybe you said it was a blonde lady, a younger lady that you saw.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So let's say that, and you were at this conference. Let's say that this young lady was jogging and got hit in New York City or something, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe her mom was sitting at the same location you were sitting at, and she, at the time her daughter was hit by a car, she got overwhelming feelings of sadness. She felt like she saw an apparition of her daughter in jogging uniform. Maybe she had some physical symptoms like feeling like someone hit her with a bat or something. So So maybe this daughter sent a telepathic distress call, if you want to call it, to her mom where you were.
She dialed the wrong number.
Well, that's the thing. Let's say when the woman died, it was 50 years ago. I'm just using a number here. And that telepathic message was sent to the mom 50 years ago. So this distress message goes out into the environment, and it links with the mom. Let's say the joggers in New York, and it links with the mom. Where was this conference at?
It was in Arkansas.
And the mom is in Arkansas. So the daughter gets hit. She sends a distress message to mom. She sees a visual apparition of her daughter in danger. So it's like a telepathic distress signal in Arkansas where you're at. So this distress signal is in the environment now. And if people are sensitive enough, they could walk up and maybe pick up on this residual telepathic distress call. So maybe, but she didn't.
But even in another state.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's a thought transference. So if we look at the Civil War case, the son died in Gettysburg, and Deborah was in Indiana, and she got all those types of symptoms. So he communicated what he was doing to his mother in Indiana, 500 miles away or whatever. Same thing with this jogger. She communicated her distress symptoms to the mother in Arkansas. Now, we can communicate nowadays through the environment with just touching a phone. I could pick up my cell phone and call Japan right now. So this idea that communication at a distance is not possible, that doesn't exist. But this thought transference occurs. So then you have this experience 50 years in the future in the same location where the mom might have had the experience in the past.
Well, the strange thing is, though, one of the people saw her in another state, and the other people saw her like a week earlier, many miles away, but not too far from there. But the weird, and I didn't know this other person, and I have to say the jogging outfit looked dated. It might have been 80s or something.
But see, what my theory can explain that, because maybe the distress signal went to people she was emotionally linked with. So that could be mom in Arkansas, that could be brother in St. Louis, and that could be, I don't know, husband in Ohio.
Yeah.
So this went to all these people. So this distress signal is out there in all these locations. So, my theory would really say it doesn't matter where you're at. If the distress signal was sent, then someone can pick up on it.
Gotcha. Wild. I want to get to some of these lovely questions that people are posting here. Well, you kind of answered the Civil War thingy. During your time as a residential advisor, did you get any reports from the residents of shadows or apparitions in their rooms?
I was never a residential advisor.
Yeah,
I worked on a residential unit. Yeah, right. I worked on a substance abuse unit.
Gotcha.
No, I never had anyone really say like the place where they were at was haunted, as far as in a psychiatric unit or a substance abuse residential unit.
Gotcha.
Which
lucky you.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, there's a lot of emotions tied to it. There's a lot of, stuff going on there, but I never heard anything. Hospitals are typically one of those places that are frequently haunted.
Truly.
Oh yeah. You hear those all the time from nurses, usually from nurses. Things like that. And I used to work the third shift, so.
Well, you really got it then. I've experienced stuff in the different places I've worked, and and heard stories from the patients. And
one of the top things in healthcare is, because I worked in the ER, was every time I'd walk in and it was a full moon, everyone would tell me, it's a full moon, you're going to be busy tonight, because the implication is that people are crazier during full moons.
Right.
And all these places have done all this research saying that that's not true and blah, 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 blah. Like a lot of skeptics will say, there's no correlation between full moon and psychiatric admissions. But I tell you what, you work in an emergency room and full moon comes around.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no, it happens.
It really does. In Wisconsin, when the Packers lose, that's when the crazies come out. And now with our Rodgers purposely injured, I'm going to say it like that. There's going to be a lot more going on.
Well, I will say this. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. So you guys are lucky.
Oh man, I tell you, that hurt that he got hurt.
Rogers, your team is far superior than ours.
Yeah, well, you know what? They really train them. They don't let those guys go. They keep their guys and they get them to the point of doing what they do. So it's they're a different team. They don't let their players go very often. So they mold them. They mold them. So another question. This says, if I don't know if you know about this stuff. Does Brandon have any opinions on remote viewing or experiences, or was that just in the book he read?
Yeah, I don't have very much experience with remote viewing, but I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to give the people in the chat room a place to go. I spoke at the Parapsychological Association's 60th anniversary celebration. I spoke on environmental sensitivity and things like that. But one of the speakers there was Dr. Ed May. And if people don't know who he is, he was the lead researcher for Stargate, which is the government's forte into studying ESP and things like that.
Yes.
So right now, I think it's 15, 20 years after they shut it. I mean, the program went for 15, 20 years, but they declassified everything after 15, 20 years. And he's got a new book coming out here shortly. And he talked a lot about remote viewing. And he talked about how accurate some of the participants they had in this government study were. And it was absolutely fascinating. But you can go on the Parapsychological Association's YouTube page, and you could watch his full speech or presentation. It's absolutely free, and it will absolutely blow your mind.
Cool.
And remote viewing is one of the things they studied the most in this government research for 15, 20 years. And he shows pictures of what the person was drawing in the actual target, which was, I don't know, 400,000 miles away or whatever the thing was. But I don't talk too much about remote viewing. That is another animal in and of itself. I talk a lot about telepathy, thought transference. I talk a lot about consciousness. I talk a lot about apparitions and the psi hypothesis and things like that, but not specifically remote viewing, because remote viewing doesn't have too much to do with ghosts and apparitions. It's more of like a ESP remote viewing type situation.
Gotcha. Well, I have a question for you. What is your ultimate goal behind some of the research that you've been doing? It seems like no matter whether you've experienced something or not, there's an ultimate passion and a drive and a goal. So what is it for you with this book?
Oh, no one's asked me that. What is my goal? I tell you what, and from starting this whole thing to where I am now, it's kind of been quite a ride for the most part. But, as far as my goal, I think I just want to get some of my ideas and thoughts out there into the world and kind of see what people think about them. So, I have a website and I have all this stuff going on. But really what I want to do is just talk with people and get an idea of kind of how they feel, what their thoughts are on my book. I mean, I'll be honest with everyone. The original premise for the book was a skeptical look at ghostly phenomenon through the eyes of a mental health clinician. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it took quite a turn.
Oh, wow. I'd say.
So, yeah. So what I did was, I compiled all these research articles from mainstream psychology and parapsychology, and I started writing about the numerous psychological and natural causes to ghostly phenomenon. So because I've always been fascinated with ghosts and I never had an experience, I was, old Brandon was really skeptical of those people who did. So, prior to writing the book in Edinburgh, my research that I conducted on environmental sensitivity, I kind of looked at it through a skeptic's eye, and I sort of said, well, these people are just misinterpreting ambiguous stimuli. And looking back at that, I kind of punched myself in the face, because what I did was I reduced like over 600 paranormal experiences, which were reported in my research, to being misinterpreting ambiguous stimuli. And I think that's kind of I don't know, it's a crappy thing to do. So looking back at it, I kind of go, I wish I wouldn't have done it like that. But anyway, about a year into researching the book, I started to look more closely at sort of the theories outside mainstream science. And that's Carl Jung, that's Rupert Sheldrake, Michael Chalice, Leonard Ravitz, Harold Saxton Burr, Robert Becker. And it kind of opened my eyes to these alternative ideas out there. So I had an epiphany one night, and I was really struggling with all these new concepts about consciousness, psi, and paranormal experiences. And I was trying to fit them into my conservative view of the world. And I realized I spent too much time reading articles, books, and skeptical blogs that I forgot about the most important thing in paranormal experiences, which is sort of people. Yeah. And then I spent the next 3 to 4 years just gathering as many firsthand accounts of ghostly experiences as I could. I read book after book on ghostly encounters. I listened to whoever wanted to talk to me about ghosts. I went to conventions. I let people talk about their encounters. I didn't judge them. I didn't debunk them. I didn't do any of that. And what was amazing was I started noticing these similarities of these encounters, and it led to these new exciting theories that I have. And I really am grateful that I took a step away from just reading articles and just listening to people, because people are experiencing this paranormal phenomenon. And, you know, I in the past, old Brandon of 10 years ago might have just dismissed this as this or that. And I kind of kicked myself in the butt for doing that.
Wow. Well, welcome back, though, to the correct side of the paranormal, because I think even Bigfoot would have threw a rock at you had you put a book out like that. You kind of,
and it's like, well, I have a degree, I know what I'm talking about, and you're wrong and I'm right, and that's a crappy attitude to have. And you see that a lot sometimes with people kick open the door and tell you, well, you're not seeing a ghost, it's blah 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 blah. And it's kind of like, it's like telling somebody that they don't love their spouse. It's like,
hey, you know what? You got to do me a favor. You got to look into this weird phenomena where those who believe in ghosts don't believe in aliens, and then we'll make fun of those people that have, and it's like, and vice versa. It's like, hold on, everybody. No wonder we haven't gotten as far as we should in these odd topics, because you're too busy fighting each other and insulting. I mean, really? A ghost hunter is insulting a UFO hunter? Come on now.
That is weird.
Yeah.
It seems like I have a friend who has who kind of does all of that. He does cryptids, he does UFOs, and he researches the ghosts too. And so his viewpoints on things are amazingly, it's like, whoa, I never really thought about that. And I think it's because he has such he's so open-minded to all that.
Oh, yeah. This guy named MJ that's producing tonight is also one of those people. He investigates all that stuff. And it keeps life interesting. You're never bored. And, a lot of people have to realize you're not really going to make a living by disclosing the biggest UFO story you've ever heard, or ghosts or whatever. It's not a way to make a living. When people step forward, they're usually pouring their guts out because they need to vent. They hope to learn, and to meet up with others, that just to partner up in this paranormal world. And people are like, oh, that's a bunch of malarkey. I'm like, hold on. This same person can testify in a court of law for witnessing something. But if it flew, if it walked through a wall, you can't use that same testimony. I mean, it's sad. I'm like, we've got to change the attitudes that's out there. But
and one of the things I hate the most is, someone will, you said pour their guts out about a paranormal experience, and someone will say, well, you're crazy, or you're imagining things. And so automatically they sort of go towards questioning that person's mental stability. And you're an occupational therapist. Mm-hmm. To me, that's like the lowest you can go. Questioning someone's mental stability, because these paranormal phenomena, there's millions of reported occurrences every year. So to have someone who has an experience sort of degrade them as saying they're sort of mentally unstable, to me is it's almost unethical and immoral to say something like that.
It really is. But, I have to tell you, we've already come to the bottom of the show. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Is there a best way you could shout out real quick where people can check out your book?
Yeah, sure. So the book is called The Ghost Studies, New Perspectives on the Origin of Paranormal Experiences. You can find it pretty much anywhere on the internet. Amazon has it, I think Target, Walmart. You could also, if you like going into stores and buying it, most Barnes & Nobles are carrying it, which I really appreciate.
Great.
Shout out to Barnes & Nobles.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Once again, Brandon Massullo, this has been fascinating. Everybody in the chat room loved it, and I know that you'll get a good response. So you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can catch me here every Friday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can listen to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander, remembering always if it's weird, we're here. Good night, everybody.